Week 2 was a wild one. We had massive comebacks. We had huge implosions, these massive outbursts from specific players in individual games. It was a delight to follow, both from a DFS and a betting perspective. And we're here to wrap it all up, to recap what went down in week number 2, let you know what it means going forward, and take a quick look ahead to the week 3 NFL DFS main slate. Welcome on into the Heat Check Fantasy Podcast, powered by numberFire. That's right here on the FanDuel Podcast Network and numberFire.com. My name is Jim Sonis. I am a senior writer and analyst for numberFire.com. Joined here, as always, by Brandon Gadula. He is the senior managing editor of numberFire.com. Brandon, week 2 still has 2 pretty fun games left, but week 2, outside of that, has been a blast beyond the Trey Lance injury. How you doing today?
Oh, man, I was doing great till you mentioned Trey Lance.
I know.
Our
darling boy.
Yeah. But yeah, it was a good week overall. Really interesting games. And also, you know, for us, when we look at things from a DFS standpoint, also some games that kind of simply reinforce the fact that it's okay to gloss over some teams. We can talk all we want about, you know, the fun teams, but I think that certain teams proved that they don't really offer a whole lot for DFS, and that kind of makes it easier for us.
Well, I think that it's a couple things that were important for this week. The first one is that, making your research easier, crossing off a lot of teams. But also, I think it was a good week for concentrated player pools, because we talked a lot about on Thursday's show about how, like, we felt good about if there was no George Kittle. I was like, okay, I think it's 2 quarterbacks at the top, Kyler Murray, Lamar Jackson. And when we got down to crunch time on Sunday, I had 42% of both those guys. And, like, that made up for a lot of mistakes that I made. I made a lot of mistakes, like Darrell Henderson, like his role got real bad real fast. Like that happened. DJ Chark I had a lot of. Robbie Anderson had plenty of, but it didn't matter. It was still a profitable week for me because of Lamar, because of game stacks. That's the other thing too, is, you know, the value of game stacks. If you get that push and pull for all 4 quarters, that's going to just erase a lot of mistakes. So tight core, mistake erasers, of prioritizing upside at all times, game stacks. I feel like it was a good week for our specific process, the one that you and I have, I think, that we overlap the most.
Yeah, I mean, pull up any tournament, and this would be the case in, you know, cash games to a degree as well, but pull up any tournament, look at the winning lineup. Very, very rarely do all 9 of those, or we'll call it 8, we'll skip defense, but like very rarely do all 8 of those guys hit. You can see someone win a big tournament with 1 or 2 sort of underperformers, but that's because they hit on high ceiling plays. And one thing that I was thinking of a lot with the slate yesterday as it unfolded was like, okay, yeah, Lamar Jackson, I think probably ended up leading the slate in rushing yards. He did for a bit at least. But it's like, okay, this validated playing Lamar, because we said, if he hits his rushing ceiling, if Kyler Murray hits his rushing ceiling, nobody else can really match it. Right. Now, one player did. It took him over 400 yards and 6 touchdowns to do that.
Jared Goff almost got there too. Let us not disrespect our other son, my other son.
Yes,
sorry, he's a half son. It's fine. Don't worry about the family tree here.
The thing though is, it's very easy to look back in hindsight and say like, well, yeah, Tua and Goff put up huge games and I could have just saved a bunch of salary, but you're cherry picking those huge outlier performances. And yes, Lamar had a big outlier performance. I'm not saying he didn't. Right. But you're looking at, you know, after the fact, picking the right 1 or 2 of 20 value quarterbacks who went off. It's just goes to show that the predictability of rushing quarterbacks and the upside of rushing quarterbacks can really, really pay off and erase a lot of mistakes.
Yeah, and I needed those erasers.
Like Darrell Henderson.
Yeah, I needed that. Every running back I used, I think, was bad. Although every running back on the slate was bad outside of Nick Chubb, basically. So it didn't really hurt you to have bad plays at running back, but that definitely did help to have those guys going bananas. We're going to break down the big week 2 takeaways and what it means going forward in just 1 second. But first, a reminder to make sure you're subscribed to the numberFire Daily Fantasy Podcast feed. We are live here on Mondays and Thursdays. Monday recap, Thursday preview. I like your mug. Is that a porcupine?
think it's like a hedgehog. Maybe.
This is why you watch on YouTube.
behind.
It's a hedgehog. Yeah, it's a hedgehog mug. This is why you watch on YouTube, live on the FanDuel YouTube page, 10 a.m. Mondays and Thursdays for the recap and the preview podcast. But also we have MLB DFS every weekday. Austin Swaim covering that on Mondays. Tom Vecchio on Thursdays for me, and I'm on Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday. I've got NASCAR still going, UFC, PGA, all right here in the same feed. So a lot of good stuff, all coming to you directly if you are subscribed on the numberFire Daily Fantasy Podcast feed. Hit subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Also, Thursday nights officially belong to the NFL again, and FanDuel and Amazon Prime Video have teamed up to bring you more ways to win this NFL season. Introducing Prime Video Pick'em, a free-to-play pick'em contest centered around one of the most exciting events of the week, Thursday Night Football. So here's how it works. You'll be given 10 questions to answer about Thursday night's game. Fans who answer the most questions correctly win a share of $15,000 in cash prizes. It is that easy. This week's matchup features the Pittsburgh Steelers against the Cleveland Browns. You're going to want some action on the line for that one. No purchase necessary. Age and location restrictions apply. Void where prohibited. See full terms at FanDuel.com. This is not part of the ad read, but the next-gen stats version of the Amazon stream on Thursday was very cool. Just throwing it out there as well. Big fan of that. Okay, let's dive in here to our Week 2 headlines. And I think the headliner outside of the explosions was some high-profile offenses struggling. We're talking about the Broncos, the Cardinals until the fourth quarter, baby, and the Bengals here. These high-profile offenses that have gotten off to a slow start. Let's start things off here with the Broncos under Russ Wilson. 16 points in both games so far. Russ has a really low passing success rate, which I think I should have paid more attention to heading into this week. It did get lower, but it was also pretty low in week 1, kind of feasted off of some bigger plays. He got by based on that. I should have paid more attention to that when I was looking at this slate. Also didn't help that Jerry Jeudy got banged up in the first quarter. He got rolled out at halftime. KJ Hamler did not play in this game, which I don't think helped either. But we look at Russell Wilson's targets after the Jeudy injury. Cortland Sutton got 10. Javonte Williams had 4. Tyree Cleveland had 3. Nobody else had more than 2. Sutton, a 44% target share and a 57% air yard share after the Jeudy injury. So I want to ask you first about the Broncos offense overall, but then also about how we look at this offense if Jeudy misses time.
Yeah, I mean, it's not good to see what we've seen from Denver. It's not just a small sample of Russell Wilson maybe getting off to a little bit of a slow start. It's play calling issues. It's delay of games. The Denver stadium, the fans were chanting the play clock countdown, almost like when you watch Giannis Antetokounmpo attempt a free throw like that, with that much energy, so that they did not get yet another delay of game. There was a 3rd and short or 4th and short, and they ran like a tight end option or something. It's just head scratching. Yeah. And so while we can write it off as like a small sample of getting acclimated, I haven't seen a whole lot to get me very, very excited. Russell Wilson obviously does not run the ball. So he's just a pocket passer. He can be at his peak a very good pocket passer. But one of the things that I would struggle with Russell Wilson, even at his peak with Seattle, was that he's obviously had the volume issues, and he thrived off of efficiency. And now if he's not going to run and he's not going to be super efficient, I don't know what he's really giving us. And I don't want to just write it off entirely, but watching him too, like, he kind of took some snap, like he doesn't look like himself. He took a snap and kind of rolled out and just stumbled and ate a sack. And that's an accident, but that's not like the crisp offense, like the crisp Russell Wilson that, when I would have faded Russell Wilson and Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf in the past, I would have felt like he's going to take a snap, do something magical, and throw a dart 40 yards downfield. And I don't really know if that's how I view it now. So I'm a little bit concerned. What are your thoughts here?
Well, I'm concerned because of the injuries. Like KJ Hamler might not be a big target earner, but he's a field stretcher, and Sutton gets downfield targets, but it's more so because of physicality than raw speed. And so they don't have the field stretcher there. Judy's now banged up. That's a lot of pieces to lose from this offense. So I think that your concerns would be valid in general, but then you add on the fact that they're partly explainable because of injuries, I think that kind of makes it worse, because I do like Javonte Williams. I want to use Javonte Williams. His role was pretty good in week number 2. Still ran a lot of routes, only 4 targets, only 1 catch, but like he still had a pretty good role, and also to get a lot of work towards the red zone. So I want to be on Javonte. I want to be on Courtland Sutton, but it is concerning. The thing with Russ is Nate Tice of The Athletic, he would always call Baker Mayfield Russ with less athleticism. Does that mean that Russ is now Baker Mayfield?
Oh,
and
no.
we're not leaping to use guys tied to Baker Mayfield. So I think your concern is legit. I think it's more concerning, or it's more legit if these guys wind up missing time. More time, I should say.
Yeah, I mean, Jerry Jeudy's a really good receiver. There's not a whole lot behind Courtland Sutton. I mean, you can say Albert Okwuegbunam, but he didn't really get the usage bump.
2 targets, baby.
So it's tough. I mean, I guess if you want, you could say it just is easier to stack Russ now with Courtland Sutton, or maybe you stack him with Javonte, but
that would imply using Russ at quarterback, and I can't do that.
Yeah, this went from hey, look, we liked Lamar, we liked Kyler, and then maybe Russ and Trey Lance were like 3 and 4.
Yeah,
I don't think I'm gonna be able to put them there, and maybe they go out. Obviously we don't fully look ahead to next week. I don't know when they play or who.
They play on Sunday night, so they are off the main slate. Bless them.
Oh, we're gonna have a Russ Jimmy Garoppolo matchup.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, we'll talk about that half of it.
Had I known that matchup before the season, I'd been like, oh man, Russ going to be cooking in Denver.
Trey Lance, yeah.
And I like Jimmy Garoppolo fine, but this is very different.
It's not we can like Garoppolo and say it's not nearly as fun.
Yeah,
like it's not as fun. We'll talk about that in the injury section. But let's talk now about the Cardinals. Really slow starts. Like when they're in the game plan section of it, things don't go well. Last week, the second half surge was probably because the Chiefs didn't need to do anything. They probably didn't care. This week, though, the Raiders cared, and Kyler just kind of did stuff. They were very dependent on Kyler just doing stuff, but it did work. So the Cardinals come back, but it's still a struggling offense now. James Conner's banged up. He's got an ankle injury. After he left, Darrell Williams played 37 snaps with 8 carries and 3 targets. Benjamin, 33 snaps, 5 carries and 4 targets. So the offense is volatile. It has been awful, unbearable at times, but they have shown flashes of being fun when they've had to. But I don't know how to view them. What's your view of them? What's your read on this backfield if we assume Conner misses time?
Yeah, if we want to talk about like injuries and absences, at least a little bit for Denver, obviously no DeAndre Hopkins, no Rondale Moore yet for the Cardinals, but it's like you alluded to with the slow starts. You want to kind of see teams have their first 15 and do some things, but Arizona now has the 3rd lowest offensive success rate through 2 games in the first half. Kyler Murray in the first half has a passing net expected points per dropback rate of negative 0.16. League average is about a 0.10 on the positive end. Now in the second half, he's a 0.13, so he's a little bit above average. But obviously, when we're talking about Kyler Murray, we should expect and hope for average passing efficiency with a bunch of rushing upside. So that works, but I mean, it kind of kills the stacks if I feel like I can't really expect 4 quarters of good play here. So, again, it's another situation where I don't want to write it off completely. And when I talked about some offenses that made it simpler to just write them off, these are not the offenses I was talking about. It's more like New England and Pittsburgh and Chicago, that kind of stuff. So I'm not out, but I think there's if I don't know what Rondale Moore is going to be, if he's going to play next week, obviously still no nuke for a bit. This could carry over, take James Conner off the field. We've kind of come around on James Conner, but this is not a good situation.
I think the one thing that was encouraging is that they did start to funnel more targets towards Marquise Brown and Zach Ertz. AJ Green still got more than he deserved, and he looked awful just outside of that 2-point conversion. my gosh. I was complaining about him in Slack, and JJ Zacharyson said, you can't spell Jag without AJG. And I was like, okay, I like this. I'm going to co-opt that. So we're going to go with that going forward. I think that getting Marquise Brown 11 targets and Zach Ertz 11, that makes me feel a bit better because they might still sputter, but at least I don't have to worry. But okay, I mean, Greg Dortch had a touchdown too, but just 4 targets for him, 55 yards. If I can feel better about the Brown and Ertz side of it, that does help things. But
so here's a good question though. And this will depend on specific teams, but we're through 2 weeks now. Are you weighting week 2 more heavily? Or are you looking at games 1 and 2? Because combined, Marquise Brown's up to a 20.5% target share to lead the team. That's not really what we're looking for.
He has 42% of the deep targets though, and 29% in the red zone. So I'm okay with that actually. He's probably over salaried, but they're facing the Rams next week. High total, tight spread. I can feel okay about putting him in there. He was 74 this week. That needs to come down to 69 or so, 68, somewhere in there.
I think that'd be about right. He's 7,000.
Okay, that's fair. Cool.
What about
Ertz?
Kyler?
55. Ertz should be 55, I would say.
Ertz 52. Okay. Give me a Kyler.
Kyler was 85 this week. He should be bumped down to 83.
He is 78.
Oh my gosh, they're gonna make me do it again.
Mm-hmm.
I hate it.
Yeah,
I hate it so much. I wish I could. It's the Jake Gyllenhaal Brokeback Mountain gif where he's just staring off in the distance saying, I wish I knew how to quit you. And that's me with these stupid Cardinals. I hate them. I hate them so much. And I'm going to hate them again next week. We're going to be here 1 week from today and be complaining about the stupid freaking offense on the show again because I'm going to use them again and they're going to let me down again. Although I guess my Cardinals money line won yesterday. It's why am I complaining this much? I don't know. Whatever. I'm going to regret it. I'm going to regret it.
Again, we start to look ahead on this show. So it's not all planned out, but it's looking like there are going to be 4 games with totals over 50 and a lot of other games with totals close to 40. So it might be an easy week to study up on.
Yeah. What's your read of this backfield? I feel like it'll probably be split.
Yeah.
I prefer Benjamin, but seeing Williams get that much run in that game did dull my enthusiasm there.
Yeah, I mean, I try to pull up the play-by-play stuff and actually look and see, were these guys getting on the field before the injury, because that can tell us a lot. But it wasn't really the case.
Yeah.
So
Benjamin played more last week, I think. Let me pull that up quick. I think his snap rate was not negligible. 35% last week, and Williams didn't play an offensive snap. So that's why I favored Benjamin, but we didn't see that this week.
What would his salary need to be for you to plug him in? Because I'm assuming he'd be game stacks only. But
55.
I typed in Eno and I saw Gino, and I was like, there's no way.
75 or whatever. 68.
63.
Yeah.
Eno Benjamin 5,000.
Okay. Well, we'll read what Cliff says throughout the week for whatever that's worth. Probably not much, but we'll see. Other struggling offense right now is the Bengals. They get the Jets next week, so we got to talk about them. They're now 0-2. It's a similar pattern with the Cardinals where they've gotten off to slow starts and then been somewhat relevant in the second half. But Burrow has taken 13 sacks already so far this year. That's a bummer. And it's, it could be the offensive line trying to gel because they got a lot of new guys in there. Burrow himself is kind of a Russ-esque player where he hunts for big plays and gets himself sacked as a result. The good thing was that with T. Higgins being back this week, the offense was pretty concentrated. 10 targets for Higgins, 9 for Jamar Chase, 7 for Hayden Hurst. So they've struggled, but at least they're still concentrated, and maybe we can see an uptick. What's your view of the Bengals right now?
Yeah, worrisome with the sacks. They come with the territory with this team. Joe Burrow has a really high pressure to sack conversion rate, which is not what you want to see. But pretty sure I saw that he's not getting blitzed a ton by comparison, which is especially not what you want to see with such a high sack rate. Yeah, he's down toward the league, the bottom of the league. He's been blitzed on about 15% of his dropbacks. League average this year is 26%, and yet he is guys around him who have been blitzed at a similar rate. This doesn't account for volume necessarily, but Tom Brady 3 sacks, Aaron Rodgers 7, Stafford 8. I guess it's those guys. Well, Stafford can.
But 13's a lot.
13's a lot.
Yeah.
And those are drive killers. So it's
also,
tough.
I would say for next week too, the Jets defense is not what it used to be. Like they've got some dudes who are fine. I know that the Browns put up 30 on them yesterday, which shouldn't happen, but like it's not as laughable of a defense as it once was.
Yeah, I think this is going to be not quite because Arizona plays the Rams, but I think this is potentially the still the most fascinating because we could see salaries dip a bit unless they just automatically were frozen because they're playing the Jets next week. But the total's 43.5. Cincinnati is favored by 4.5 on the road, according to FanDuel Sportsbook. So, their implied team total is going to be fine, but your research has shown totals like that low are not great conditions for
it's
receivers.
Specifically bad when guys are popular. Yeah. So I could see a scenario very easily where people kind of overlook the struggles and flock towards Higgins and Jamar, and also like Mixon as a result of
or like a Burrow bounce back too.
Yeah, like I could see that happening. So I want to get rid of if they're popular. If they're not popular, I could see a bounce back very easily because I still have faith in these players. It's still a concentrated offense. But if they're going to be popular, I think you have a lot of leeway to pivot based on that, based on everything going on here.
So let's take. Chase was 87. He's the one I'm most interested in, just because. Where would you put him now?
I thought he was too high there, honestly, just because like Higgins played. Like he's probably like an 83, and Higgins is probably like a 70, 78, 77.
When I think of Jamar Chase's player card on FanDuel now, I think 82.
Yeah.
And what'd you say for Higgins?
77, 78.
I'd probably go like 75, but
okay.
Chase is 85, Higgins 73.
Okay, so it's a T week next week. Good to know. Okay, let's dig into some injuries for this week. The big one and the sad one is Trey Lance broke his ankle Sunday. He'll be done for the year. That sucks. Jimmy Garoppolo came in, didn't light it up, threw deep on 3 of 21 attempts, as you would expect. Efficiency may change if he gets a full week as starter. They can game plan around this stuff. But looking at Garoppolo's targets, 7 out of 21 targets to Brandon Ayuk, 5 to Deebo Samuel. Deebo did rush 4 times for 53 yards. So Lance is done, which stinks. We also don't know when George Kittle will be back. Did practice Friday, so I think he'll be back this week, but it's uncertainty there. As far as the backfield goes, Jeff Wilson led a committee over Tyrion Davis-Price. Wilson, 18 carries and 2 targets, actually played well too, which was weird. I thought he'd get volume, but play bad, which is why I was like not super, super high on him, but like I used him. He played better than I thought he would. TDP, 14 carries, a 40% snap rate. Wilson ran around a 10 out of 25 dropbacks. Same number as TDP. TDP, no targets, but both guys getting 10 routes. So it's a full split here. Wilson did have 6 red zone chances compared to TDP's 2. How are you viewing this full offense going forward now, Jimmy G at the helm in place of Lance?
I don't mind it. Like, honestly, I'm more inclined to play the pass catchers because there should be more just passing volume. And Jimmy Garoppolo's fine for sure.
I was pretty upset when I had to go into my priors sheet this morning and increase their passing efficiency. I was like, this feels wrong. I did decrease their rushing efficiency. So like I think the net wound up being pretty much a wash, but I was pretty sad about it.
Yeah, and maybe we have different reads on this, but it seemed like George Kittle was fairly close to playing this week, so he might be back and then throw a wrench into everything. Obviously increase the efficiency, but kind of make the market shares here a little bit irrelevant. So maybe we can dig back and look at historical numbers with Jimmy G for the preview show. But if they're on the main,
well, they're on Sunday night, I think. So bless them.
That's right.
See you guys.
So we don't have to worry about it.
Need these goons over here.
Yeah, I mean it's probably elevate Ayuk a bit. He's probably the biggest beneficiary of more passing volume because Deebo's going to get his work. Kittle might be limited, but he'll have a high target per route rate. So it's probably just better for Ayuk. And I don't think I saw enough in the backfield to want to go here.
Yeah, I think they'll have weeks where they can like put up enough where it's like, I kind of wish I'd used him, but are they going to burn me for not using them? Like, what's their ceiling? Probably not super, super high. I think that Wilson's got the edge, but there's always a chance that Tyrion Davis-Price's role expands as things go along.
Yeah. And again, I mean, we could see a 2-touchdown game from one of them, but in hindsight, you can identify those, not necessarily before the slate locks.
Correct. And even like without the passing game work, like 2 touchdowns, 60 yards is 18 points. That's not gonna kill you for not having it. So I think that's the way I'd view this one here. Justin Herbert suffered a fractured rib cartilage, and he is day to day. I'm not sure if I phrased that right, but anyway, he's got that. It makes it seem like he'll be good to go this week, but he's probably not going to be feeling great. So any worries for you with this Chargers offense with Herbert banged up, assuming he plays? It looks like sportsbooks are assuming he'll play. They've got a lineup with the Chargers -7. I'm showing some value on that as of right now. So maybe they're kind of playing it, hedging it a bit under the possibility he doesn't go. I think that should be like a 10-point spread based on my numbers. So might be a bit of a hedge against Herbert there. But what's your read on this offense with Herbert banged up?
You're way more plugged into the news than I am. What's Keenan Allen's situation?
So he seemed like he didn't have a chance to play this week because it was a short week.
Yeah.
Which to me implies there's a decent chance he goes.
Okay. And then Herbert also gets like the mini bye playing Thursday.
Correct.
And then waiting until Sunday to play. So, I mean, in this situation, I kind of trust this offense enough to figure out ways to get the ball out of his hand quicker. Part of that could funnel through Austin Eckler, who kind of did the Undertaker gif.
I mean, did he though?
A little bit low.
Did he? We can talk about it, but that was a lot of garbage time dump offs, man.
Yeah, but I mean, if they check down a lot,
I mean, yeah, they're going to be trailing the Jags at home. Our Jags. Sorry, not to be disrespectful to our Jags. Not to be
the Jags.
disrespectful.
They put the clamps on the Colts.
I mean, that's because the Colts suck and the Chargers don't. Like Matt Ryan with his noodle arm and his dusty legs, a little bit different than Justin Herbert, broken ribs or not.
Jeez, how many red zone plays did they have?
The Chargers. We'll talk about the Eckler side later on. I've got
Okay.
theories. We can talk about that later
All
on.
right.
But like,
Jim's got his theories.
Yeah,
I love a good Jim theory though.
I think if they're willing to let Herbert play, that to me says he's healthy enough where we don't need to worry. We don't need to downgrade the offense. That's what I would think here, at least.
Yeah. It's too early to say if we'll find him in the salary scroll.
Eckler or
see
Herbert?
Herbert and see where he stacks up, because he could be interesting depending on
it
what
would stink if he gets down, if he doesn't run, because like that play at the end of the game where he like had open field and just kind of like chucked it away, that was disconcerting. Hunter Renfrow is being evaluated for a concussion after yesterday's game. He got hit in that last play. I didn't see any updates on what his status was, but it didn't look good. So that didn't look good. Renfrow led the team with 10 targets. Darren Waller and Mac Hollins had 8 targets. Devontae Adams had 7. I think that like we're probably going to see that a lot going forward, where teams are just like, oh, okay, Derek Carr can't throw to anyone else efficiently. Let's put the clamps on Devontae and just like disregard these other jabronis. I mean, Waller's not a jabroni, but like, whatever. How would things shift for you if Renfrow misses time?
I'm not like a huge Renfrow changes the efficiency of the offense kind of guy. It would probably make Mac Hollins like a tertiary option if I'm stacking games.
No.
He went from having the worst target per route rate in the NFL to having like 2 catches in the first like 3 minutes of the game, it felt like. But yeah, with Devontae specifically, I think we can probably lower him a tick because the efficiency was so bad. His catch rate over expectation was a -26%, caught 2 of 7 targets, did have 4 targets downfield, which for me now is 10 plus yards downfield, not 20. Kind of see a shift.
No consistency with this guy. Gosh.
Yeah. But I'm trying to improve. That's the thing.
Sure.
Trying to adapt, just like potentially defenses will adapt to.
Okay, buddy.
Not letting Devontae Adams just be wide open in the red zone, which he seemed to be always in Green Bay. But yeah, I mean, I think you bump him down because this is within the range of outcomes. And I would probably say it's not really within the range of outcomes for like Cooper Kupp. Not that they were salaried the same, but Cooper Kupp doesn't really have these like 2 catch 19-yard games or 12-yard games.
Accurate. Yeah.
So
I think that's right. I'd agree with that too. And I would expect teams to keep doing this it's a bit easier too if there's no Renfro. I mean, like Renfro's not a huge threat, but like, it's a competent body out there, and that matters. So I'm not saying like, oh, we can't use Devontae anymore. He still has a 32% target share for the year. He has half the deep targets, 7 total across 2 games based on 16 plus yards downfield. So I don't,
So they play Tennessee next week. There is it. Where there's a total. It's 45.5.
Yeah, the total came down because some shark is out there betting under 47 on Sunday mornings.
I just figured I don't know. But name a salary for Devontae. I think he's the most interesting name here.
I still think he should be 87 because like the floor, there's a lower floor, but the ceiling is still there. So 87.
He's 87.
Yeah. Do you agree with that or no?
I probably would have said like 84, 85, but that's not a huge difference.
Fair enough. Dalton Schultz hurt his knee in week 2 with less than 3 minutes left to play. Didn't look great. I think he was trying to go back in there. So I'm not sure what the read on this one is, but he had 4 targets at the time. CeeDee Lamb, 11 targets for the second consecutive week. This time, 7 catches, 75 yards, so more efficient somehow. Tony Pollard, 7 targets. Noah Brown, 5. Any interest for you or any extra interest in Lamb, Pollard, Noah Brown if Schultz were to miss time, or is the quarterback play enough to just push them out of play for you?
I don't know that CeeDee Lamb is dead just yet.
He's Brandon Cooks.
We've seen
he's Brandon Cooks.
We've seen high volume guys be relevant. He actually got to 75 yards on a catch rate under expectation of about 3.5 percentage points. I like that. 4 downfield targets. I'll take it.
I
think he's interesting.
You can do that. We'll talk about this team later on. I think they're gonna suck for pace. So
pace?
Sorry, not pace. Pass rate. Sorry, you're right. You're right to make the distinction. I'm sorry. You're right. I misspoke. You're right.
Oh goodness, they play Monday. They play Monday night at the Giants. Over
Cooper Rush versus Daniel Jones on Monday Night Football. Oh no.
How do you have a total under 40 for Monday Night Football?
That's bad. We do a Monday Night Football betting preview every week with Ryan Williams over on Covering the Spread.
Good luck.
What am I supposed to Hey, okay. Well, we'll get to that later on. Let's talk about some role changes here from week number 2. And the big ones are a lot of rookie receivers doing some stuff. Garrett Wilson, 64% snap rate for the Jets, but that was in part because he left for time due to a back injury. But he had 14 targets, 102 yards, 2 touchdowns, kind of a homecoming thing for Wilson, who played at Ohio State, was playing in Cleveland. I overlooked that. I suck. I know. It's my fault. I agree. I've beat myself up for this plenty. Believe me.
You got one job here.
I know. This is my only job is the narratives, and I messed it up. I also missed the Leonard Fournette homecoming game in New Orleans. So that was on me too. He didn't do much, but I still messed it up. So we still have Joe Flacco likely for at least one more week, but Garrett Wilson's role is really good. So if you do decide to go with those Burrow Chase situations, are you putting Garrett Wilson in a game stack, or are you worried he'll get too much steam here?
He very easily could get too popular. He's such an obvious bring back after end. I'm going to look into like air yards and depth of target stuff for Thursday's show and talk about why it's important and it's not just made up and doesn't matter. Like I got some people telling me on Twitter. But speaking of air yards, Garrett Wilson had a 43% air yard share, and he had 178 total air yards in week 2, trailing only Chris Olave and Jalen Waddle. Really good role. So I'm fine to a degree chasing it because the role was good. It wasn't just 2 touchdowns on like 5 or 6 targets.
Yeah.
And it could have been an even better game if he didn't leave for a bit with that injury. So I think the arrow's up. My question to you, obviously, is within this game stack, what do you think is right for Wilson?
59, just because the offense is so bad.
I'd be surprised if he didn't get over 6,000.
I would bet he will.
His results,
but
again, we're talking
Flacco.
We're talking what we would be comfortable. I'll say 6,000.
Okay.
61.
Okay, that's fair. But that probably means it'll be more popular too. I think it's okay for him to be popular. I wouldn't really, I'd be pretty inclined to not use him if you're popular, but I think it'd be like justifiable chalk, but I can still pivot from justifiable chalk at a volatile position like that.
Yeah, it is volatile for sure. Receiver value pivots or receiver value chalk is basically the worst thing to chase. Because again, these guys are going to be coming off of hot games usually. And you can not always score multiple times in a row. So,
well, he might because he has 8 red zone targets through 2 games, which is absurd.
He could. Yeah, he could. But I think he's interesting. Probably will be more popular than he deserves to be, though.
I just want DGAF Wilson back. Zach, that is, not Garrett. I know that Flacco like does some stuff, but I don't know. I think we'll see. We'll see how that goes. Probably enough where, like, would you consider pivoting to like Elijah Moore as a bring back, or has Wilson sucked up enough where you would probably just run it with no bring back and avoid the frustration with the Jets?
Yeah, I'm probably more likely not to go there because Corey Davis showed a pulse this week. Elijah Moore's there. They can and do throw to their running backs. So it's very possible that the Jets offense is not irrelevant, but that nobody really goes nuts. And that's not what you want for stacks.
Agreed. The Saints wide receiver distribution changed a lot in week 2, centering around their rookie, Chris Olave. 13 targets for him. Michael Thomas had 9. Jarvis Landry had 5. In week 1, Landry led with 9. Thomas had 8. Olave had just 3. But Olave got a lot of downfield work in this game. More than 300 air yards on 13 targets. But Michael Thomas also got downfield work. His ADOT was 11.3 yards. Juwan Johnson did maintain a nice role, ran around on 34 of 46 dropbacks, earned 7 targets there. So we get Olave getting deep balls. We got Michael Thomas not looking like his old self, but looking like a very relevant player. What's your view of this offense right now?
Yeah, so this is an interesting team to look at from a week 1, a week 2, and a full season, which seems weird to call it full season, but just the 2 weeks. Because we saw Jarvis Landry with the best role in week 1. We saw Olave with the best role week 2. The steadiest role has belonged to Michael Thomas. I think it's pretty easy and safe to say that Michael Thomas would be the default if you could play any of the 3, not caring about salary. I think it's hard to argue against Michael Thomas, but Chris Olave's workload in week 2 was pretty phenomenal. He did surpass 300 air yards, which has been done 4 other times since 2016. And those guys that did it were Mike Evans, Marquise Brown, Julio Jones, and AJ Green. I know you made the joke about AJ Green already, but AJ Green was at one time the best receiver in football, basically. So I think that there's a lot of potential, and the fact that he didn't do a whole lot with it, and the fact that I think a lot of people don't care about things like air yards and actively hate them, might mean that Chris Olave is not as popular moving forward as he probably should be. So I would say Thomas still number 1, but Olave would be the number 2. And I think I'm probably down on Jarv, but you were on Jarv this week. So maybe I'm writing him off too soon. So
another guy whose mistake needed to be erased. I might have bet the over on his receiving yardage prop as well, because I suck. I think that for me, I should have been more skeptical of the Jarvis Landry role in week 1, I think is what I would say. And I think that what I want to do is go based off of the full season data, like you said, make that kind of my view of the offense. We look at the full season numbers here for this team. We've got scrolling MT at a 24% share. Olave is now at 22%. That makes a lot of sense, honestly. Olave, 39% of the deep targets. Thomas at 22%. Then Thomas has a third of the red zone targets. It's only 3 out of 9, but I would say it's Thomas 1. I would bump Olave up to 2 and Jarv 3. I feel like that probably means I won't use Jarvis and should not have used him this week. That was probably a mistake, but mistakes happen plenty often. We'll talk about the running backs with this team right now, actually. With no Alvin Kamara, the Saints were largely a committee. Tony Jones loaded the 49% snap rate. Mark Ingram looked good at times. Dwayne Washington had some like bursty type runs in there as well. Ingram was banged up coming in. So I don't think we should use Jones. I don't think I want to go there. Would you consider a healthier Ingram next week if Kamara were to sit again, or are they just a cross off?
I don't like this offense enough.
Yeah.
So I want to target their running backs where I needed more. I either need like dedicated volume or expected efficiency, like a Clyde Edwards-Helaire situation.
Sure.
The total next week, 40.5 against the Panthers. That game could be ugly. That could be a 3-3 going into halftime sort of game. Can picture that one with the graphics. So no.
But it's two former number 1 overall picks, Baker versus Jameis. There we go. Let's talk about the other rookie receiver who had a good week. That was Drake London. Talk about the Falcons here. Cordero Patterson's role was underwhelming. Even with no Damian Williams, who's now an IR, Patterson played just 59% of the snaps, 10 carries and 1 target. He split early down work with Tyler Algier. So that's kind of a bummer. But Drake London, 12 targets, led the team. Nobody else had more than 3. Kyle Pitts had 3. So Patterson, I think I can personally shove him aside. I don't want to speak for you, but I think personally we weren't super in him at his salary anyway. So just kind of see ya. But London is fun. Is he kind of the one guy for you here? Or are you still holding out hope for a Pitts surge? Where are you at?
Yeah, I mean, London was one of my favorite plays of the week. I thought he was really undersalaried for what his role was and could have been. So I'm high on London. I think Pitts is probably the more intriguing name because you see the 2 catches, 19 yards in both games. Tweet done a ton. You'll see that a lot this week. So he's consistent. But the thing that worries me more is that Arthur Smith said about Kyle Pitts' role is that it's not, quote, it's not fantasy football. We're just trying to win, end quote. And if you don't think that forcing the ball to Kyle Pitts more helps you win, that's not what I want to hear as a DFS player.
Yeah.
I will say that like it could be worse on the season. Now he has a catch rate over expectation of about minus 20%, but he still has a target share of 17.5%, so round that up to 18%. Now, if you compare him to the elite tight ends, obviously he doesn't stack up, but if you compare him to the other tight ends in the value, like in the salary range where he was this week, I think he's fine. The main issue, obviously with Pitts specifically, has been touchdown expectations. If the offense is projected to be poor, it's hard to score, and if they're not going to force him the ball. So what I'm getting at is like Kyle Pitts, I don't view as like someone who should give me FOMO if I don't get there, but I don't think that we should see him in the same salary range as like TJ Hawkinson or something and just be like, I can't play Kyle Pitts. It's not that bad.
Yeah. I think that I would need him to be not popular for once. I'm not sure if that'll ever happen. Maybe it will now that people are finally like annoyed with him enough. I need that to happen first because like I'd rather just use Drake London, to be fully honest. Like, I mean, London's great. Name me a salary for London and then name me a salary for Pitts where you'd actually have to be tempted by him.
Okay, so they play, and this is always matchup
Seattle.
Specific. Seattle, 42.5 point total. I wasn't
that total's higher than I thought it was going to be, not going to lie.
There are like 4 games with totals over 50 and like almost everything else is
bad
under 44. So there's going to be a pretty big gap. I'd say for London, he should be like, because I still care about the offensive expectations. I'd say 66.
I thought 63. He is 62. So regardless, undersalaried.
And
I think that's pretty fun. Like is it odd to say that he's a cash game consideration at that number?
No, I kind of like don't yell at me for like exact roles and stuff, but I'm getting like 2020. I had to think of the year 2021 Amon-Ra St. Brown numbers where like if they're just going to get him involved and like feature him, even if the offense isn't fantastic, but his salary's in like the low 6,000 range. Yes, that sounds like a floor argument, but stealing comes from volume.
Yeah, but he's had 5 downfield looks, 45% deep rate. Yeah, I agree with you. Like he has a ceiling, I think. Yeah,
absolutely. Cash game kind of guy will probably be in our head-to-head against each other unless things really shake out differently from expected. I would say for Kyle Pitts though, probably not a whole lot of change. He was 59, I think, this week. I'd probably put him at like 58. I don't think that what's his role compared to the other upper 5,000?
What's his role
tight
compared
ends?
to the lower 5,000 guys? Like we could get Tyler Higbee at 53 this week. Would you rather have Higbee or Pitts straight up?
With offensive expectations in that game, Higbee.
I'd rather have Higbee too. Pitts is 56 next week. I would have said 55. So like he's low enough to be a consideration, but I'd rather use London and I'd rather get my lower salary tight end in a better team unless no one uses him, then I'll consider him. Speaking of Higbee, let's talk about those Rams. Their running back committee did tighten in week number 2, much to my dismay. Darrell Henderson played 57% of the snaps, Cam Akers at 44%. Akers letting carries 15-10. He had 3 targets compared to none for Henderson. They split red zone work. Akers got 3 carries and 1 target compared to Henderson's 3 carries. Should we just avoid these guys? What are we doing here?
Yeah, I think we have to. Again, I feel like I got away with Clyde Edwards-Helaire in week 1. Definitely feel like I got away with not that it helped me, but I at least got away a little bit.
It should have. Yeah, we got away with it because like there weren't any good running backs in the slate, so we got away with it. We shouldn't have. I think we kind of. I mean, I know CEH had a good game on Thursday, but like. You cash your chips, you walk away from the table, you be happy that you're up, and you go elsewhere.
And like I'm not putting this in the same tier, but based on what we saw from the Rams in week 1, it wasn't great. And I'm not saying like they're in the same tier as like the Cardinals and Bengals, but I don't know. I'm not as high on them as I used to be.
You got to adjust to the fact they played the best quarterback in football 1 week and then Josh Allen the other week, facing Marcus Mariota this week. It's just,
I knew it was coming, but I don't know how many other people did.
You got to adjust to that, you can't keep him off the field. Plus 4.7% completion percentage over expectation for Mariota this week. It happens. It happens to the best of us.
Yeah. And he was making some scramble plays for first downs and
he's the best.
Got the pressure on.
I think, honestly, the Rams are very similar to the 49ers right now, where they have paths to a decent game. I'm not sure they have paths to a great game in their backfield. So the FOMO factor for me is pretty low, personally. And for now, that could change. Subject to change, for sure.
It's also sort of baked in that these guys have their roles capped.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Austin Eckler did increase his snap rates in week 2 from 51% to 64%. Route rates from 35% to 60%. 14 carries and 10 targets. Somehow still got under 97.5 rushing plus receiving yards. Shout out Austin. Appreciate that, bud. Coming through for the team. Are you viewing Eckler differently now, or was that a result of a mad scramble at the end and no Keenan Allen, which is my theory?
Yeah, it's a little bit more my theory. He was boosted so much by touchdowns last year. The role itself did not stack up with the elite running backs, which we talked about entering week 1. We haven't quite seen it this year yet. So he's not, it's not awful. I think if you probably blocked out the name, you'd find some other similar backs with like roughly similar workloads and be interested at like lower salaries.
He's kind of like Aaron Jones with a much higher salary and a higher sentiment.
Yeah.
And like Aaron Jones has paths to a ceiling. Aaron Jones is my MVP spot.
Sure does.
Like for single game, like there are paths to that, but I don't want to I don't want to get overconfident in things like that. So
bigger favorite next week, 7 points at home. I know that Eckler's not the traditional like milk the clock running back, but that'll probably lead to some popularity with a high implied team total. What are you thinking salary wise for Eckler that you would actually want to play him?
It'd need to be in the 7,000s.
I was thinking 75, just sort of split it.
Yeah. What is it? Do you know?
It's 87. So
what am I supposed to do with that? Like he had a 61% snap rate in the first half this week. He wasn't running it. Like it was better, but like it still wasn't good. I'm not touching 87. I don't care if it burns me. That's fine. I've been burned before. Dameon Pierce's role is a bit better. Neutral script this week. He played 63% of the snaps, 15 carries, 1 target. Rex Burkhead, no carries and 3 targets. Pierce had 3 out of 6 red zone chances for the team. The big flaw for him is that he ran a route on just 15 of 41 dropbacks. So he's going to be a couple target per game max kind of guy. I think that his role is better now than it was, obviously, but still not in a spot where I want to consider him for DFS. Where are you on Dameon Pierce right now?
No thanks. I don't think there's enough time. I need to be better at being open to value backs or non-elite backs so that I can play, or also never play Cooper Kupp ever if I'm not open to these guys. But I don't really know if this is it. I think he's fine for season long. This is more appealing for based on what we saw in week 1, but I really don't think this is it, honestly.
Potentially similar discussion with Josh Jacobs. Again, his role is better than I expected last week, and then it was better than last week this week. He played 75% of the snaps, 19 carries, 1 target, so still not great passing game work, but he did run 21 routes, so maybe room for improvement there. The problem is that Brandon Bolden didn't play. I'm not sure much of a role that played in it. I'm guessing a pretty big role in his expanded passing game work. So it might not stick, but where are you at on Josh Jacobs right now?
Honestly, another spot where I think the sentiment is too high on Jacobs. Even in game stacks, I don't like to go there. I guess maybe you say if Renfro's out and there's no Bolden, he can naturally just filter in for another 2 targets. I don't think he's necessarily like a game-changing receiving back, though. So I'm probably just going to pass.
Yeah. I'm curious how popular he'll be because he was more popular. Like I looked at roster projections Sunday morning. I was like,
he's always more popular. He's always drafted earlier. In
people hate him.
Leagues.
People like just poop talk him on Twitter all the time. And yet he still wants being popular. I don't get it. How does this happen?
So they're playing the Titans. The Titans will be on a short week next week.
Vegas is also traveling and playing a 1 p.m. game.
True.
Jacobs last week had 1 of 6 red zone chances. Brandon Bolden had another one. Brandon Bolden played 29% of the snaps in that game. This week in the red zone, Jacobs, I don't have it sorted by name yet. So he had 3 out of 11 red zone chances. So, like, the red zone role isn't even great either. Not going to get a ton of red zone work, not like the focal point there. He's not getting a lot of passing game work. I think that, like, best case scenario is like 100 yards and a touchdown, and, like, that's 16 FanDuel points. So, I'm lower. He's better than he was, but it's still not good enough for me to, like, be slobbering over him.
Like 66, 67, 66 probably.
Yeah, somewhere in there. But he's 65. So I don't know. I'm still not super tempted. The Dolphins' backs were different this time than they were in week number 1. Raheem Mostert started, played a lot early, and did ultimately out-snap Chase Edmonds 57-50 to 49. As the script got super negative, though, Edmonds did take over. Neither guy hit 70 adjusted opportunities or 80 yards. I don't think they can run the ball. Mostert was more successful with it than Edmonds was last week, so I'd expect that early down roll to stay in his favor, but I just think they're bad from a rushing perspective. So is this a backfield to avoid for you?
This is the kind of backfield that I feel like will just lose you bankroll long term.
I agree. Not even for game stacks. I don't think I want to go there. Just use Tyreek and Waddle. Easy money. Amari Cooper doesn't have the best quarterback situation, but he was treated like a true alpha receiver this week. 10 targets on 25 routes, 40% target per route rate mark, which is something we see only. We saw just 3 receivers get in week 1. That was AJ Brown, Tyreek Hill, Devontae Adams. I don't want to use guys in a Jacoby Brissett-led offense, but it is a substantial change. So how are you viewing Amari Cooper after week 2?
I think he's on the menu for cash games if the situation's not abysmal.
It's always going to be abysmal.
And the salary's low.
It's going to be abysmal every week.
Sure. But I thought it was noteworthy because only a few guys got to that threshold last week. Some other guys who crossed 40% this week. Drake London, 48%. Jalen Waddle, 45%. Garrett Wilson, 41%.
So all the rookies except for Waddle, who's a second-year guy. Cool. This is kind of fun. I like the young guys.
Yeah.
And then Amari.
It's like guys on new teams and rookies are just getting like,
which is weird.
Yeah.
So like if you told that to 2019 fantasy football world, they would have like lost their minds. Okay, let's go into situations to monitor, more rapid fire things that stood out to you this week. What stood out to you in week 2?
The results weren't there for Leonard.
I think we might have lost Brandon. We'll get him back. Hey, you're back. What's up?
Okay.
Talk about Lenny again.
Talking about Leonard Fournette.
Yeah.
Results weren't there, but 86% snap rate, 24 carries, 4 targets, so a great role for Fournette. David Montgomery, his snap rate.
Wait, let's go back to Lenny quick. Sorry, I forgot.
Well, you didn't say anything.
Yeah, no, I did. I dropped the ball. So we did lose Brandon again, but with Fournette next week, Tampa Bay is facing Green Bay. I think that game is on the main slate. Let me check here. It is indeed on the main slate. Green Bay and Tampa Bay is on the main slate next week. Fournette, I love what we saw from him from a role perspective this week. Obviously, there's a chance Chris Godwin plays. Mike Evans might be suspended for this game, so we might need to downgrade the offensive efficiency a bit. Not sure if Donovan Smith will play. He was doubtful this week. So the offensive situation, the environment is not great, but I love Lenny's role. So Brandon, name me that salary for Leonard Fournette this week.
81.
He is 72. I think that's our first write that down this week, isn't it?
Yeah, that's a results-based thing.
He's got a great role. That's a pretty good game too. I know, we can talk about other stuff, but like that's Lenny is a cash game play this week unless something weird happens. That is a really good role for his salary. Okay, what else stood out to you?
David Montgomery, his snap rate improved from 66% to 81%. He ran 64% of the team's dropbacks, or ran a route on them, and that was 9 routes, which, it is what it is. Montgomery can be interesting if the salary's right. What would his salary need to be for you to be interested?
So they get Houston next week, which is the best situation he'll have the entire year. I would say based on his current role, 81% snap rate, a lot of work, some work in the passing game when necessary for the passing game as much as it exists. I think that role is worth like 73, right?
I would say.
Yeah.
72 to 74.
Yeah. And his salary is 71. So I prefer Lenny.
Oh, yeah.
But like Montgomery is a consideration at that number in that specific matchup, I think.
Yes.
Yep.
I would say so as well. Jets backfield, I think we're just going to be checking in on this and not really have much to say for at least a bit. But Michael Carter built his lead over Breece Hall, 61% snap rate to Hall's 26%. Each had 7 carries. Carter had 5 targets to 1 for Hall. Hall was more effective, but nothing you can do with this from a DFS standpoint. Similarly, James Robinson, 63% snap rate, extending a lead over Travis Etienne, 37%. It was a 50-50 split in week 1. Robinson, just a really good workload, 23 of 32 running back carries, 2 of 5 running back targets. You could maybe prioritize him a tad, but I'm not quite there in this offense. Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf have really good market shares, but somehow terrible roles. Lockett's at a 48% air yard share, Metcalf 28%, but these guys have no yards after the catch. Lockett's at 25 yards after the catch on 12 catches. Metcalf's at 4 yards after the catch on 11 catches. I went back and looked at all of DK Metcalf's catches, and he's basically just getting hit as he's catching it. Nothing's really going down the field. They're either screens or curls or outs with no juice on them to go downfield. Metcalf has the 8th lowest expected yards after the catch in the NFL among qualified receivers. So just something to keep in mind. Market shares can be very helpful, but this is not a good situation. And then just because we're always looking at tight ends with anything, Evan Ingram, 8 targets for a 27% target share, 32% target per route rate. It's at least noteworthy.
So they're facing the Chargers next week, which might be a game that we're interested in. Would you consider Engram as a bring back, or is it just Christian Kirk, market share god?
I think you have to be open to it. It'll depend on the slate itself. Boy, his ADOT is terrible. 4.6 yards.
So we have both Andrews and Kelsey on the slate.
Boy.
So I think that's
You're banking on those guys to bust.
Waller. Yeah. So that's noteworthy for sure. Christian Kirk still has a 26% share, a lot of downfield, or like not a lot of downfield work, but enough downfield work. And then he has 5 red zone targets for a 39% share. His salaries at 71. I don't think that's egregious by any means. It's getting more respectable. Still receptive to it at least though. All right, things I'm looking at here. Christian McCaffrey's role a bit better this week, largely the similar, but a bit better. He played more snaps at 93%, but still limited work in the passing game with just 5 targets there. He was very effective with 128 yards of scrimmage, but it's still pretty mixed about how to view him right now relative to what he was. I think it's definitely down from what it was, but, keeping an eye on that one. The Ravens will likely get J.K. Dobbins back for this next week. So we can probably just cross out their backfield until then. Nobody played more than a third of the snaps. So until Dobbins is back, don't use anybody here. And even when Dobbins is back, might want to go there either. Kenny Golladay got benched this week, even with Wan'Dale Robinson out and Kadarius Toney being banged up. Sterling Shepard ran a route on 33 of 37 dropbacks. David Sills ran 36. I think he's a converted quarterback. I think he played quarterback before he went to West Virginia, if I remember correctly. David Sills, quarterback. Let's see here. He went to El Camino College before West Virginia. I think he played quarterback at some point. I could be lying. Anyway, next Edelman. But 36 routes. I probably don't want to go with the Giants if I can avoid it. But if you do, Shepard first, followed by Sills. But Saquon is still 1. In the first game with no Ty Montgomery, Ramondre Stevenson had an edge for the receiving work, but still was not a good role. Stevenson ran a route on 13 of 35 dropbacks. He did outsnap Harris 62% to 39%, but Harris is more productive. I think the Patriots are still a cross-off, even without Tymont. Do you agree?
Are the Patriots a cross-off?
Sorry. You're right. Dumb question. You're right. Let's dig into philosophical changes here from week number 3. We saw the Dolphins concentrated target tree. It does help how pass heavy they are. I think because they can't run. They had a 71% early down first half pass rate. So the negative script did help Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill, but so did the fact they can't run and they're just passing a lot. Through 2 games, Tyreek has a 31% target share. Waddle's at 30%. And we saw Tua go nuts. So 2 questions. How are you viewing the 2 receivers here in Waddle and Hill? And do we need to be receptive to Tua and DFS at quarterback after his huge game? Or can we still ignore him because he's not a huge rushing guy?
I think we can generally ignore him because he needs like 400 yards and 4+ touchdowns to put up like a true ceiling. Are you asking me like, do I prefer one of the receivers or just how I feel about them in general?
I don't want to make you choose. That seems wrong. Seems very rude. I wouldn't do that.
Love him. I will say that the real shift is that I thought Jalen Waddle's salary was a little bit high at 72. I don't think that anymore.
Yeah.
I think it's very fair for what he can do. But yeah, I think Tua is going to matter primarily compared to the rest of the quarterbacks. If we have upside guys, then
like if we have Mahomes on the slate, which we do. Hurts is on the slate next week. I'm including him in that because I think he's earned that.
Don't they play Buffalo? It's like what? Josh Allen.
Buffalo. Oh yeah, so Josh Allen's on the slate too. Forgot about him. Shouldn't do that. That was dumb. Kyler's on the slate. We got all this. So
yeah.
I think in that situation, you're correct, where he needs 426 yards and 6 touchdowns to kill you for not using him. He happened to get that, but even with a 71% early down first half pass rate, you're not expecting that.
Very similar general game script potentially for next week where they trail against a good offense. He's 7,300. I think he will be a very popular play based on the expectation that they'll have to throw a lot.
They're underdogs. People don't tend to use underdogs ever.
I thought people used underdogs because they want passing volume.
No, they don't use them at all.
Okay.
There were like 5 total underdog running backs who were popular last year in DFS, isn't like top 3 in roster rate. Yeah.
Oh.
Total underdog quarterbacks. And there were 6 in perfect lineups. There were more quarterbacks in perfect lineups that were underdogs than there were popular, despite there being 3 per week that are popular and 1 in the perfect lineup. So I'm not going to use them. I'm just pointing out that people don't use underdog quarterbacks. Name that salary for Hill and for Waddle.
Hill 85, Waddle like 78.
Hill's 84, appropriate, and Waddle is 75. I think we can be on both those guys. I think they'll be very popular, but that's fair. Fair numbers. And I'm more receptive to popular receivers if it comes with a 30% target share, which for both guys currently it does. That's why I'd be there. The Commanders were also super pass heavy against the Lions. How about that? 68% early down first half pass rate for them. They were 59% last week, which is also pretty high. And that's good too, because they have 3 pretty fun receivers. Curtis Samuel led in targets again this week. He has 24% of the overall targets so far. Terry McLaurin did rebound with 8 targets on a 13.3 yard ADOT. Just 5 targets again for Jahan Dotson, but he also scored again, which is good. Samuel doesn't get downfield looks, which does obscure his path to upside a bit, but Dotson and McLaurin get downfield looks, but not the same overall volume. How you feeling about these guys? Where are you at on the Commanders receivers right now?
I like them. I'm a little bit worried that it's one too many guys for DFS, and it could be one of any of the 3, and it's probably going to be statistically, if I'm heaviest on one, it's going to be the other 2 guys, unless we really think that there's a clear distinction between them. And while I have my preferences, I don't. This is just not I don't like to tie up too many lineups with very, very hit or miss guys in terms of what their workloads can be.
Yeah. I would say that they've hit so far, despite having these spread out market shares, because they're pass heavy.
Yeah. And if I've learned anything in DFS, it's to chase guys who have scored and have high catch rates over expectation, because that always sticks.
How low would their salaries need to be for you to alleviate your concerns?
Oh, I'm not saying they got to be 55, but I'm saying even if they're all roughly around 6,000, I don't know if I have a strong enough preference to pick the right guy. If I'm building one lineup against you, I'm probably not putting any of them in there.
Oh, I don't think any of them in play for cash games, but
right.
They're facing Philadelphia next week, which is a game I'll probably stack.
Sure.
And I'll use all of them. Maybe not Samuel. I don't know. I probably should use Samuel, but he's annoying.
But that's the thing. You build lineups and you leave out Samuel, or you build so many lineups that you need to play all 3, then you're getting a little bit out over the skis.
No, I just won't use Samuel, and I'll hope that he doesn't do what he did again. I think Dotson is 6,000.
But I'm saying that's a very nerve-wracking thing to have to say. Is I don't care. Okay, all right. Let's look at these salaries. For
McLaurin 69, nice. Samuel 63, Dotson 6,000. I'm gonna be pretty decently high on McLaurin and Dotson again next week. Fine with
Dotson is 6,000. I think is this the biggest standout there, although he's been catching a lot of passes
because he's good.
Yeah, not 60% over expectation good.
Is this game in Philadelphia or it's in Washington? I was going to say homecoming narrative. I know Philly and Penn State are not super close, but we could have gotten the homecoming narrative. It's the small state that does not take 16 hours to drive through east to west. It's not the most annoying state of all time. Just kidding. Anyway, before I make you more mad at me, not surprisingly, the Cowboys were super run heavy in their first game with no Dak. Early down first half pass rate, 36%. Woof. When they did throw, as I mentioned before, a lot of targets for CeeDee Lamb, but so they're not slow from a pace perspective, but runs keep the clock going. And that's going to, put a cap on how fast they can be because they're going to be run heavy. So to me, their defense is still pretty good. Micah Parsons is still destroying worlds. I think the defense will be good. I think the offense will be run heavy. To me, that's going to lead to a lot of unattractive game environments for DFS. So that's going to hurt CeeDee Lamb for me, but it's also going to hurt opposing teams. what's your view on game environments for the Cowboys if they're going to be this run heavy, but also have a weird pace?
I mean, they played at a pretty up-tempo pace this week. Still third in adjusted pace among teams that played so far this week. 24th of 28 teams that played in pass rate over expectation. I get it. I think we talk about pace and pass rate a lot. I think pace can be very easily overvalued.
Sure. It can be viewed as the only thing, whereas it's a component in the mixture.
Yeah. And if there was efficiency here, you wouldn't care so much. It's questions of efficiency. That said, I can boil all this down to, do I like the only guy that I would play here is CeeDee Lamb. And do I like CeeDee Lamb and his role enough to play him in the right setups? Yeah. If he's going to get double-digit targets. And I know that they want to rely on Ezekiel Elliott and all this, but like there's no excuse for CeeDee Lamb not to get 9 targets every game.
Mm-hmm.
So again, that sounds like floor seeking, but ceilings come from, they're tied heavily to volume. So I think CeeDee Lamb's still appealing, and that's really all that matters to me here.
I don't want to do it. That matters to me. I don't want to. I'll pass. Salary scroll. We're going to take a look at the week 3 FanDuel main slate, go position by position. Just kind of scroll down, get a quick glance at salaries, and just get a gut check on things that stand out to us as being, that's interesting. Let's start at quarterback, and Brandon, I'll let you shout out the first thing you see.
As usual, the thing that stands out is how many guys are above 8,000, or in this case, 78, because Kyler Murray, I would say, meets the potentially elite fantasy football checklist. And there are 2, 4, 6 guys there. Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Justin Herbert, Jalen Hurts, and Kyler Murray.
That's the best quarterback slate we've had in a long time.
Yeah. If you're going to be playing, like, you might be tempted by Tom Brady at 74. Tua 73, Derek Carr 71. I feel like people like to play Derek Carr, but you are really, and I comprehend that saving $1,000 or $1,500 in salary on a quarterback opens up a lot, but you're banking on 6 guys.
It's a 6-player parlay that they all bust.
That basically. They all sort of, and again, bust in this sense.
Or sorry,
like
yeah.
Not go for like, one of them goes for 35 or so. Because if they get to 25, other guys can match that. But the thing is, these guys can get to 30, 35. And at that point, you're probably being optimistic if you think that the 1,000 or 1,500 you save, you're gaining those points back by picking the right, like, stud receiver.
Mm-hmm.
You might, but.
Yeah, I think it's a great quarterback slate. And
Joe Burrow is going to be. I think Joe Burrow could be popular at 75 in that matchup.
I think that's a mistake. Yeah. Aaron Rodgers is 74. Like, that's probably under salary, but doesn't matter with how weird and stupid their passing offense is. No, I don't think so. Yeah, I think it's another week where we turn towards those upper guys. One like lower salary guy who I would say
Jared Goff.
No, who I would say. He has my interest. I'm probably not going to use him.
Trevor Lawrence.
I pulled up his player page. I did pull it up because it was like, okay, our Jags are a little pass heavy this year, feeling a little frisky. They've been good. I know to stack him with Christian Kirk. I'm not going to cross him off just yet. If you made me use one guy underneath Kyler, it might be Lawrence right now. Might be.
I think it would be. We'll see how the Buccaneers' health goes.
Yeah,
I don't know enough about the rules to know if like Mike Evans would be suspended a game, but probably not.
Sounds like they're thinking about it.
Okay, so
that's what reports are.
But if he gets Mike Evans, maybe Julio's back. I don't know. If you're not on the slate, I'll revisit it. Later in the week, the next week, but he could be interesting.
Yeah. Okay, let's go to running back. What stands out to you there?
That Austin Eckler has a higher salary than Christian McCaffrey stands out.
I hate it.
McCaffrey's 85.
Dalvin Cook's salary is 83. That feels really low right? Am I wrong?
Well, I mean, 77% snap rate last week.
He left at the end of the game though because they
Yeah.
were up by whatever, and Madison got some work at the end. 20 carries, 5 targets.
We'll be on a short week, but
I think that's low. I think that's real low.
I don't think it's like real
It's not
low.
Lenny low.
No.
Like Lenny's still the better value relative to salary, but that's low for old Dalvin there.
Yeah.
Lenny against 72. The guy above him is Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
And Cordero.
Well, that's.
But I mean, like, that feels wrong.
Yeah. CEH's passing game role was, I thought, okay in this week, but 73 is really high. Even in a game that I'll probably want to stack, despite the fact that he's facing Noodle Arm on the other side of that KC Indy game. I think that's pretty low for Dalv and for Lenny.
I think people probably fear the Tampa Bay defense, but Aaron Jones 7,000.
Yeah,
coming off of a 30-point game.
Only 3 targets there, but that's in part because they were up so big because of him. They didn't have to throw very much later in that game. In week 1, he had 5 carries and 5 targets. Didn't have a ton of work, but because the way he gets his work is so good, he still had 9.1 FanDuel points. Like, I think his floor might be a bit underrated because he gets so much work in the passing game. I don't know.
Yeah. We're gonna like the Philly-Washington game.
Mm-hmm.
Antonio Gibson, we liked him a lot this week. His role did get worse.
A little bit, yeah.
His route rate fell from like, what was it? Week 1.
High to not as high.
48% to 29%. JD McKissick had more of the passing work. So
yeah,
that's tough. I'm not saying he's out of the conversation for game stacks because I will have plenty of Jalen Hurts and AJ Brown, but not like for anyone maybe wondering, like, hey, we liked him a lot last week. What changed? The receiving role changed.
It actually did change. Scrolling down a bit, I want to see what Devin Singletary's role is tonight because we talked on the recap show last week about how Zach Moss had a fumble late in that game. James Cook had a fumble early. I'm curious what Singletary's role looks like tonight. I think there is a possibility he gets an 80% snap rate. I'm not saying it's like an assumption, but I think it's a possibility. And he would at least be interesting at $6,100. What?
I just kept scrolling and noticed that Rex Burkhead, running back 1 from week 1 for Houston, now has the same salary as Julius Chestnut, who I've never heard of.
Is he on the Titans?
Yeah.
So I'm guessing he got salaried up in case Henry gets hurt.
Yeah.
I'm guessing that's what that was. But yeah,
I mean, I've heard of almost everyone who plays a skill position in the NFL. But
would you use Rex Burkhead if his salary were $52, not $5,200, $52? Would you use him?
I used him in a lineup this week for stacking, but
no, you didn't.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. I figured, hey, if I'm banking on a Russ like shootout, then Burkhead could get 8 targets or something.
Looking down here, I don't see anything else that stands out. So I think to me, Singletary is a guy I'd flag. Otherwise, like the 7,000, low 8,000 range is really good this week.
Yes, and to keep it like noteworthy though, we're looking now at very likely high salaries at quarterback and running back.
I think we're looking at mid at running back though, because Montgomery 71, Lenny 72, Jones 7,000.
That's still pretty high.
It's
realistic.
Bad,
if you play
though.
3 of those guys and a stud quarterback, you're.
Let me do it. Okay, gotcha. I got you. Okay, so let's put Jones in there. Let's put Monty in there. Let's put Leonard. I called him his full name and it felt weird. I don't like that. Okay, defense. I'm gonna stick in. I'm not gonna put the Cardinals defense in. Don't you worry. I'm not gonna do it. Let's put in just the Seattle defense as a placeholder. I can't use them against Marcus, but we'll do it.
That's low, 34
and then,
realistically, but even still.
Okay, fine. I'll go up. You're right. Fair enough. Bengals defense at 36. That went so well last week. Let's run it back again here. Good. Okay, so we'll do that. They're 36. And then which quarterback do we want to go with? Like, who's our favorite of this group right now? Is it Mahomes at 87?
I defaulted to Jalen Hurts.
Okay, so Jalen Hurts at 81. 67.50 left. And then if I go with, do I want to go Andrews or Kelsey? Let's go Kelsey. I got 6,400 left if I go Jalen Hurts and then Kelsey. That's not bad. That's very doable. I think we can do that.
Yes, but three receivers around 64 is very different than punting for one or two to play another stud. So I'm saying, like, if this is your default thought process at quarterback and running back, that even though like we need a high salary at quarterback and like a mid salary for 3 running backs, you still can't really roster the stud receivers if you're playing.
I got AJ Brown in there right now. If I go back down to Seattle at defense, I've got 5,400 left for receiver. So let's turn our salary scroll to wide receiver. Find me a good one. Brandon. Don't let me down. Woof. Justin Jefferson jacked up to 95. Justified. Can't push back on it at all. Cooper Kupp is 98. Can't push back on that either. I
remember asking on the preview show, like, Jonathan Taylor at 10,000 or Cooper Kupp at 97. It's just
all my Christian Kirk stacks got nullified because I had JT as the bring back on all of them except for I had him as a standalone play, I think in like one lineup, but I had him as JT pretty much every time.
Yeah.
Okay. Woo! Amon-Ra St. Brown finally got jacked up. $7,800.
Wow.
Again, justified though. Yeah. Justified. Like he's oh no. I figured out my $5,400 receiver. Oh no, DJ Chark's salary didn't go down enough. It's 55. No, he had a donut. Why is he still there? I thought I figured it out. It's gonna go right back to him. Okay.
I think you can make a case for like the low 7,000 range receiver as well. Working my way up. We have Terry McLaurin at 69, Mike Williams 7,000, Marquise Brown 7,000, Christian Kirk 71. Gabe Davis, the guy, 72. Michael Thomas, 73.
Well, we don't know if we'll have Gabe because he's banged up entering tonight. Isaiah McKenzie is 55. Oh, everyone's 55. Stupid. FanDuel. Ruining
T. Higgins, 73. So, I mean,
so rude.
Again, I talk about making sure we get guys with ceilings.
But those guys have
ceilings still.
So I think balanced build is probably going to be balanced running back, balanced receiver is probably going to be our like go-to this week, maybe.
It might be.
Yeah.
No running backs really have shown me a workload that is like back in, Jam a Man days of like David Johnson, Christian McCaffrey playing like 95%, Le'Veon Bell playing 95% of the snaps and getting
10 targets a game.
Yeah. That doesn't exist. And so that's why historically we've been so heavy on running backs. If those roles don't exist anymore, the 1 week appeal of superstar running backs is not what it used to be.
Okay, going down further at wide receiver. We have the Washington guys. Also, DJ Moore is 64.
He's run every route so far.
No Chauncey Gardner-Johnson anymore for the Saints. That does help out him from a matchup perspective with the Saints at 64. Not a good game, but Drake London at 62. Again, I think that stands out once again.
That's a pencil in.
Yeah.
Again, he was a pencil in last week.
He should be again this week. Juju is 61. I didn't think of putting stuff on the Chiefs receivers in the trend section because they were not on the main slate. Therefore, they were out of mind for a 4-day span. But through the first 2 games, Kelsey is at 23% target share. We've got Juju and MVS both at 16%. Yikes. That's pretty gross. Mecole Hardman leads in deep targets at 33%, but that's 3 out of 9. In the red zone, we have nobody above a 17% target share. Good. Sick. Although, narrative. I believe Gus Bradley is the Colts defensive coordinator right now. I need to Google this just to make sure. Yeah. So Gus Bradley is the Colts defensive coordinator. Remember last year, Gus Bradley against, or the Chiefs against Gus Bradley just took a flamethrower to his ear holes, basically. he's changed. He's evolved a bit this year, at least based on, I didn't see anything from yesterday, but like in week 1, apparently he's a little bit different than what he had been in the past, but that could be maybe better for them. But I'm just you're kind of extrapolating there. Wilson is 61. If we're not considering likely roster rates, his role is good enough to justify 61. Garrett Wilson, I think. Devontae Smith is 6,000 too.
Allen Robinson, 6,097% route rate. Still not quite the involvement you would want with 5 targets, but
yeah,
running routes in a game that's appealing is definitely not nothing.
Correct. Josh Palmer, if Keenan Allen can't go, $5,600. Wound up with 8 targets, wasn't super productive on them, and it seems like Herbert was a bit frustrated with him on a couple where he wasn't in the zone where he was supposed to be. So that, not the best, but like, not the worst either. MVS is 56.
Oh, Chris Olave is 55.
Oh, that's kind of fun. That's not a write down, but that's like a keep note for future, I think, right?
Not a write down, but with how receivers shaking out.
Yeah.
Or sorry, the whole slate overall.
Yeah.
If I want to go stud quarterback, that balanced 3 running back build, but also not forego the elites at receiver, he'd have to fit.
Yep. I'm asking you not to hit me. I know we're not in the same place, but I'm just asking you this now. Please don't hit me. But if Mike Evans is suspended and if Chris Godwin can't play, Rashad Perriman's 53. Scotty Miller is 5,000.
Scotty Miller had a great role. He had seven targets of 10 plus yards down.
You have a rush attempt? Did I make that up?
He did for 8 yards.
Yeah. Means they want the ball in his hands. He's pretty fast. Like, he's got some juice, got some wheels.
Yeah, the fight started because he got knocked out of bounds on that deep route.
Yeah, Tom Brady was like yelling at Marshawn Lattimore. That was pretty fun. I enjoy a good clean American brawl.
Hey, I was talking about that 40% threshold for target per route rate.
Scotty Miller.
Oh, he's listed as Scott Miller on.
I hate that.
Next Gen Stats now.
They still have Robbie spelled with a Y, which also kind of tilts me a little bit.
42%.
Okay.
So
Scotty Miller is basically Cooper Kupp, basically Justin Jefferson. That's what we're saying. I'm saying that. I don't want to put words in your mouth, though.
I don't see the lie, so.
Yeah, show me the lie. Tight end? Good?
Yeah, I'm more than good at receiver.
So this is an elite tight end week with both Kelsey and Andrews. Kelsey 78, Andrews 77. Do you have a lean between those two? Because I go Kelsey.
Kelsey in that game environment.
Agreed. Firm agree, which could make Andrews a good pivot. You talked before about the value of pivoting on stud tight ends. He could fit that. Waller 64, especially if there's no Renfro, that's not bad, right?
Yeah, like I said, I thought Waller was in a better spot than consensus leading into the week was. 8 targets, 50 yards with a touchdown last week. If Devontae, and I kind of made mention of it, like Devontae's probably not going to get a 50% target share all season, which he didn't.
Says you.
In week 2. Waller also fits in that, like, if people are overlooking these kinds of guys who have tangible ceilings at tight end, they're good plays.
Yeah, I agree with that. Scrolling down further at tight end, where is Higbee? Oh, 57. I missed him. Joe Lever's 58. Pitts 56.
Hawkinson 55. I'm kind of done playing him, but he's got 7 targets in both games.
Zach Ertz is 52. Just had 11 targets this past week, 75 yards, path to upside, pretty good game. I would go back to him again. I used him a bit this week. What?
Cole Kmet's 5,000 if you want someone with no catches so far this season.
No. Uncle Irv, if he has a better role tonight, coming off of his thumb injury.
I bet he'll have a better role tonight.
I don't know. I don't know.
Something tells me he'll improve upon what he gave us in week 1, which was 2 targets for nothing.
I'd rather not do this, but like the tight ends and the Jets, Bengals, I couldn't think of the word. The Jets Bengals game are okay. If CJ Uzama sits again, because Tyler Conklin has a pretty good target share through 2 games. Not a lot of like downfield juice, which kind of stinks, but he's 52. And then Hayden Hurst is 51. He had 7 targets this week, even with Higgins playing the full game. Again, not a lot of downfield juice, but they're at least worth mentioning, I would say, as lower salary tight ends.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a Kelsey / Andrews week. But anything else standing out to you down here?
Just how fickle tight end is, aside from the guys who actually have legitimate roles. And yes, those guys don't always pan out, but if they do, it's really hard to erase that mistake.
Yeah.
So it's like a fear of missing out thing. It's like you can play Tyler Conklin, but if he gets you like 11 points and Andrews scores twice, or
it comes back to what we've been saying all year, where if you're not using those guys, you're betting against them having a productive game because their ceiling is so much better. That's exactly what it is for this as well. Okay, I'm not doing defense this week, I've decided.
Oh, thank you.
Let's skip to a note to future me. Based on what happened in week 2, based on an early look at week 3, what are you reminding yourself of heading into week 3?
I think one thing is we always call like week 2 sort of the over or like underreaction week. I think it's very easy to overreact just to week 2 now.
Yes.
It's like, oh no, this is what it is. Yes. But realistically, for almost every team that's not dealing with like substantial injuries, look at the 2-week sample, see what that is. That stuff's going to sort of thin out again. The thing that comes to mind is Devontae Adams had like a 49% target share in week 1 and then fell to whatever it fell to this week. Like it's probably going to go somewhere in the middle moving forward, and that stuff matters. So it's still overreaction time, but I think it's best in general to look at both weeks now. And
I think it'll be important to emphasize not point chasing this week, given that we saw some explosion games. And the players who produce them are in intriguing games this week. So don't let the output by Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle force me to like go all in on them this week. Like try to analyze the slate with a level head, try to analyze it objectively, try to jam Lenny into every lineup. I think those are the key tenets for week number 3. We're going to talk more about week number 3 on Thursday with our preview show. That'll be live on the FanDuel YouTube page, 10 a.m. Eastern, and also up on the numberFire Daily Fantasy Podcast feed after that. A lot of stuff coming between now and then, though. Is there President's Cup DFS or no?
I wouldn't know till later today.
Okay. Well, we're going to talk President's Cup on Covering the Spread tomorrow, so you can find that. But also here on the numberFire Daily Fantasy Podcast feed, MLB DFS podcast every weekday, PGA when applicable, NASCAR, UFC, et cetera, all in the same place. So go find the numberFire Daily Fantasy Podcast feed wherever you get your podcasts. And while you're there, like what you hear, leave us a rating and review as well. Brandon, people have questions for you on Twitter. Where can they find you there?
I'm on Twitter at Gadula13, GDULA13, and I've actually been tweeting some stuff. It's been going great.
I'm proud of you, but also scared for you because I know your sentiment towards Twitter. I'm on Twitter at Jim Sonis. You can also follow the FanDuel Podcast Network at FanDuel Podcasts. Big thank you to everyone for tuning in for this week. Good luck to you with your Monday night 2-game slate. DFS lineups will talk to you once again Thursday to preview week number 3. This has been the Heat Check Fantasy Podcast powered by numberFire.